axiomatic to our existence that there's probably never been an individual who lived on the face of this earth that did not desire to know something about that question. Who are we? Why are we here? Where are we going? What is our destiny? Evolutionists would tell us and have us to believe that we are the naked ape, that we're nothing more than animals that have evolved from the primordial ooze. Socialists, such as Karl Marx, would have us believe that the essence of our being is that which we do with the labor of our hands. Existentialists would tell us that man is essentially what he thinks or wills to be. And New Age pseudo-philosophers would tell us that man is a god. But in the final estimation of all of these explanations of man, they fail because they are reductionistic in nature. They fail to grasp and see the whole of the picture of what man is. So what are we to do? How are we to understand our existence and our purpose here in this life? And what is our ultimate destiny? The only wise course is to appeal to the God who made us. Isn't that exceedingly logical? That we go to the God who created us and formed us from nothing and ask the question, who are we? Why are we here? And what is our destiny? And when we do that, when we turn to God for answers to these questions, we find that there is no more profound statement about who we are than we find in Genesis chapter 2. This is an epic passage. The entire chapter is weighty with significance as to the ultimate questions of life that we all grapple with. As we've examined chapter 1 and now descend into chapter 2, there are some who would contend that chapter 2 is just simply a second creation myth that was added sometime after chapter 1. They would reject that chapter 2 is of any real significance and classify it as nothing more than another story of creation or another myth concerning creation. But if we understand chapters 1 and 2 together, we understand that chapter 1 is loosely chronological. That is, chapter 1 gathers the creation events into what we would call a discernible pattern that demonstrates the beauty and the symmetry of creation's purpose. Whereas chapter 2 is topical. It focuses on the sixth day of God's creation, and it does so by expanding our understanding of man's relationship to the cosmos that we saw created in chapter 1. We could call chapter 1 the cosmic account of creation, in that it embraces and puts its arms around the entire cosmos. We could call chapter 2 the anthropological account of creation. It is not a second creation story or a second creation account, but it is a localized account of creation, if you will. We have a localized scene as chapter 2 unfolds before us. We move from the cosmos at large to a garden that is eastward in Eden. And the events of chapters 2 and 3 take place within this very localized place that is called the Garden of Eden. As we come into chapter 2, and of course we've dealt with 3 subjects from chapter 2 already, But in essence, if we probably divided the chapter headings more accurately here, chapter 2 would not begin until verse 4. Verses 1 through 3 of chapter 2 really belong to the creation account of chapter 1. But as we move into chapter 2, we see an account of the creation and the first and the ideal condition of Adam in 4 movements. We see the production of Adam. We see provision made for Adam. We see the probation of Adam. And we see the progression of Adam. All of these are contained within the narrative of chapter 2. He is created by God. He is produced by the majestic hand of God Himself. He is given provision there in the garden to sustain and to supply him. He is placed on probation under God's rule. He is given laws and commands that he is to obey. And then he progresses in naming the animals, and God gives him his wife to be an helper unto him. And we find him closing out in chapter 2, a fully satisfied creature existing blissfully in God's creation. We could divide chapter 2 this way. We see first Adam as the man, the creation or the production of God. We see Adam, the servant of God, who is doing the bidding and the commands of his God. We see Adam as the king, ruling and having dominion in creation according to God's purpose. And then we see in the end, we see Adam as the husband who has been joined blissfully to his helper and is enjoying being a part of God's wonderful creation. Chapter 2 is a more detailed account of the creation of Adam. And Adam stands, as it were, as the representative head of all of creation. In chapter 2, Adam is created in true righteousness and holiness. He understands that he has relationship with God. He understands God, and he lives and walks in righteousness and holiness before his Creator. If we go back and look at our text that we read, that Steve read for you this morning, we see that chapter 2, beginning in verse 4, we see the introduction that these are the generations of the heavens and the earth. If you remember our introduction to the book of Genesis, we saw that this is what is called a Toledoth. A Toledoth. There's 10 divisions in the book of Genesis, and each of these divisions are introduced by this term, these are the generations. Now, the other 9 these are the generations of Adam, these are the generations of Noah, these are the generations of Terah, and so on and so forth. But this one is different in that it opens by saying, these are the generations of the heavens and the earth. These are the descendants of the heavens and the earth. These are, if you will, this is, if you will, the account that is the taproot of our genealogical existence, our genealogical tree, if you will. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth. Moving into verses 5 and 6, we see these are descriptive clauses, if you will. Verse 4 is an independent sentence. Verses 5 and 6 are descriptive clauses that describe for us the condition of the earth at the time of the creation of Adam on the 6th day. The no's in these verses give us a great deal of information. We see that there was no bush of the field as yet. Most commentators believe that is a reference to the very thorns and thistles that the ground began to bear after Adam had sinned and fallen. And that there was no small plant of the field at the point of Adam's creation. There was nothing agriculturally being tended because Adam had not yet been created. There was no small plant of the field. While there was trees and all of that had been created, and trees that bore fruit to sustain man, it was the smaller plants of the field that did not yet exist. We see that there was no rain. God had not caused it to rain upon the land.